Hello, I'm Jackie Parnell and welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about more than just potty training. I want to talk to you about the spirit of your parenting, and potty training is a very good example of how to see this. I have had 12 children. I've given birth to each and every one of those children at home. And of course, in the rearing of these children, I have potty trained 12 children. So I want to share with you some things. This is not so much about, how-to tips and practical helps. My channel is probably not going to be fantastic for those kind of things. There are many mothers of many that can help you with all sorts of how-to tips, getting laundry done, organizational ideas for your home. And that's not so much what this is about. This is about, again, the spirit of your parenting. It's about knowing the heart of your child and having the boldness to go ahead with what's in your heart to do, even when you have naysayers and people around you, possibly even in positions of counsel, that would discourage you against what is truly in your heart to do for your family. I had to come into my own because early in my parenting, I was insecure, and I listened to all of the other mothers that in my mind, and really just, it seemed in real life, had it going on so much better than I did. They were so much better at what they were doing than I was. There were women that knew how to cook, and they had gleaned from 8 different curriculums to home educate their children. And at the time, in the first decade of our marriage, and certainly the first 5 years, I was fighting just to keep our marriage together. And there was just tumultuous times. There were things that I was going through emotionally, and my parents divorced during that time, and my sister went through some struggles emotionally during that time. And there was a lot going on, and I was having a hard time keeping my head above water and maintaining my own sanity and peace. And so I wasn't doing the illustrious things like, picking out homeschool curriculum and 4 different ways, the best way. To educate your child, and which I did, home educate all 12 children. But I was just trying to find survival mode in the middle of some of those years, and be a mom to children that were coming every 15 to 22 months early on. And so I did find some secrets that worked for me. And as I got older, I got bolder. And that's what I would like to communicate to you guys. If you are coming into parenting, male or female, mom or dad, and you're trying to figure out how to do this, but you've got things in your heart for your family and for your children, my first admonition would be to make sure that what is in your heart lines up with the Word of God, and that there is scriptural basis for it. And the second thing I would admonish you to do is go for it with gusto. And you don't have to explain yourself along the way. So here's our potty training journey. So I came from, my mom was actually the head of the nursery in our church fellowship for years. And she was counseling other friends of mine with their babies and their toddlers. And she was helping them immensely. But I felt the pressure of what I knew her ideas were. Even though she wasn't necessarily, beating me over the head with them, I knew her expectation. So I sensed the unspoken expectations of the people around me, that I was to have a child potty trained by 15 months old or 18 months old. And my first one, I was able to focus on that and get her potty trained just fine. And I did have to kind of chase her around the house and make sure she didn't pee on the floor, and try to catch her when it looked like she needed to, have a bowel movement, and get her to the toilet. And but she picked up on it very quickly, and she did really well and potty trained quickly. She's a sharp little tack. And she was just, she was ready. Okay, so then my second child was a boy. And so it was time for him to potty train at 18 months. And bless his ever-loving heart, he had no clue what I intended him to do with that toilet. And I tried for kind of a little stint. I got the little, potty training pants and from Walmart, and I was, showed him, you want big boy pants, all that kind of stuff, and tried to get him started. No, there was no connection. There was no, there was no comprehension of the expectation of what to use these potty training pants for. And it was exhausting because I was already pregnant with my third child. So I was experiencing fatigue and, just trying to, again, keep my head above water with my relationship with my husband. And so we're going through all this, and I just finally put him back in diapers, and I just let it go. I couldn't physically tend to potty training him. But with that came shame. With that came defeat and failure. Oh, think about it now. If only. But so I got on to him. I disciplined him a little harder initially when I was trying to get it done and he wasn't responding. I didn't understand the psychology of a child or, what they were going through from their perspective. I just thought that's what you were supposed to do, and a good parent would have a good child potty trained by a certain age. Well, I finally resolved that I was just gonna leave him in diapers and that he would not be an 18-year-old unpotty trained. And I just gave it some time and I backed off. And sure enough, he was 3.5. He was a little bit older and certainly outside of the expectations of the older women in my life that thought I should have had him potty trained by now. And I think I imagined more of the frowns from these people than was actually real, but I did feel pressure to comply in my parenting with a certain expectation. And with that, I will also comment on nursing my babies. So I had an expectation placed on me. Again, I think it was just kind of, I don't know if it happened in conversations. Nobody sat me down and said, hey, you need to do this by this time in your life or you are a failure. That's not how it happened. It was unspoken society, expectations from society, our society, and our culture, that anyway, I would wean my children by 12 months, and past 12 months was considered obscene or vulgar or something. I don't know what. And so I went for that expectation. Well, my son was nursing strong past 12 months and I began to panic. I was like, oh my gosh, this is weird. I didn't feel weird. The expectation of what other people were thinking made it feel weird. And so I was like, okay, I've got to. So I forced that weaning process. He was not emotionally ready for it. I wasn't emotionally ready for it. I cried through the whole thing. But I got him onto a bottle with formula initially, and then he came off of that sippy cups shortly after that, and he was weaned. And so with my third child, I didn't want to go through that emotional devastation and separation. And so I weaned her before she had a choice and could say anything to me about it or put up too much of a fight. 7 months old, I'm trying to wean. And I also kind of justified it in my head because I wanted to tuck my shirts back in my slacks again and wear belts again, which is very difficult to do when you're nursing because you need to have access. And so I thought, yeah, I need to get back in those clothes. That's not an aspiration right now, but anyway, that was then. And so I was just like, okay, I need to wean her. So about 7 or 8 months, I began the weaning process, and she was a very mild-mannered personality, and she just went right with it. She kind of looked at me funny the first day I gave her a bottle, but she took it and she was off and running and never really complained about it after that. So it was very, very easy. But here we get to the 8th child. Well, we had moved out of town, and so we were not under the watchful eye of all, and we had left the church that I'd had my first 7 children in. We had started a church plant, and with a group of people, very family oriented, and we kept our kids with us in the service and just kind of had a vision for what we wanted to do with our family. And so that's where we were. And so I did not feel the pressure to wean a child by a certain age. And I had already shucked the pressure to have them potty trained by a certain age, because there is no way that I could chase a kid around in underwear that's gonna pee all over my sofa and my floor and poop who knows where, and try to keep that managed with all of the other children and all of the other demands. And so I had learned by that time to let them come into it on their own, and they're just not going to be 5 and 6 and 7 years old, in diapers. That's not, it just does not happen unless there is some sort of mental debilitation or something going on, which we did not experience, but that's just not going to happen. A normal child, healthy and happy, is going to potty train in a decent amount of time. Now, I will say with some of my children, I had to keep them in the overnight little pull-ups that they offer for a couple of years until they learned not to wet the bed. So it might extend in that nighttime training a little longer, but we were able to get them, potty trained in due time. And there was less stress, and there was more joy, and there was certainly more peace. And I didn't care what the older women in my world, not just my mother, but just any expectation. Again, it's these unspoken expectations you feel from society to do things a certain way to prove what? God opened your womb and gave you that child, or you were able to adopt that child into your family. This is your family, your heart for your children. And you need to go with the greatest peace to run your home and manage your home, because the children, they don't necessarily remember an action that wounded them. If you lose your temper one day, if you yell, they remember the atmosphere of your home. They remember if there was control and rage, or if there was stress and anxiety and fear. That they remember atmospheres more so than they remember particular events. They're very, very resilient. Which, by the way, if you have an atmosphere that is not what you really wanted your children to have growing up, you can start today. You can repent, you can bring that under the blood of Jesus, and you can ask for the Lord's help to reset your atmosphere in your home so that your children grow up with the childhood that you want, you would have wanted, or that you had if you had a really good childhood. Look back at the things that blessed you and do those, repeat those, and at the things that did not bless you, and don't repeat those. It's simple. It's not difficult. Okay, so here we are with the nursing. So we get down to my 8th child, a little boy, our son, and he was just going strong. He was eating food, but he much preferred, I know a large part of his sustenance was nursing at 12 months old, and 13 months old, and 14 months old, and 15 months old. So, I mean, again, he was eating solid foods throughout the day, but at nap time and at bedtime, he would nurse really well and then go to sleep. He'd sleep through the night. And that's when I was just like, you know what? He wasn't showing signs of slowing down. And it kind of challenged, because it went beyond where I was okay. I had gone past that 12 months, but, did I need to wean him? Is it considered perverse? Is it, which cracks me up, because you can drive down the highway and see a Hooters billboard with boobs on the sign, and that's okay. But nursing your baby to 15 months old is not okay. Or nursing in public. Now, I'm not for just, I'm not for exposing your skin and exposing yourself to the world just because you have a right to. That's not what I'm talking about. But discreet nursing in public, no, there's not a problem with that. There should not ever be a problem with that. If we can have Hooters billboard signs, we can nurse in public. I'm just telling you. Okay, 2 cents worth there. But the point being, I pressed on, because I just did not feel the emotional pressure or the mental pressure to comply to some unspoken rule. And I kept nursing that baby. And he went to 2 years and, 3 or 4 months, nearly 2.5 years old. In fact, I was expecting the 9th baby, and about 2 months before the 9th baby was going to be born, I told Curtis, I said, okay, we probably should go ahead and I think it was by that time we're down to maybe the nighttime nursing to go to sleep, and that was it. And so Daddy pitched in to draw his attention away. It was smooth as silk. There was no emotional duress over that situation for him or for me. And we went on, and I, of course, had the 9th baby and began nursing that baby. So my point in telling you this is that you need to go with what's in your heart for your children. If you do have a situation where you cannot nurse your baby full time, my heart goes out to you, first of all, because my ideal for any mom that has it in her heart to do this is to be able to remain with your child until at least you can wean your child. But if that happens, God can take care of that baby, and you can pray over that baby. You can, of course, pump your milk with a breast pump and offer that to the baby in your absence. There's ways around it. There's spectacular formulas out there. They have perfected formulas beyond what they used to be. And so you can still offer optimum nutrition. There's no failure. There's no condemnation. I guess what I'm trying to communicate here is that there's just no condemnation for you to love your child the best way you know how. And when you feel like you're failing, you hand that up to the Lord, and you let him bring in the remedy for that. You let him bring in what you need to get through that season. And don't fret. The fear and the fretting and the shame and the guilt is what taxes your parenting. It's what taxes your motherhood. It's what drains you of the joy that baby needs to see in your face. That child, the confidence that child needs to see in your countenance. And so I just encourage all of you young parents that when you love with your whole heart and do what is in your heart to do for your family, whether it be when to potty train, how to potty train, when to wean a baby, when to start a sippy cup, when to start solids, when to start their education. Some of them I did not start at 5 years old. Some were ready at 4, some were ready at 6. When to start that education and formal education at some point. That's you. That is your heart. Go with your heart for your babies, and God will back you up and bless that. And find the place of peace to get through a difficult season, and know that the Lord has got that child. It's your love, it's your attitude, it's your devotion that counts. It's not the timing and the proof to the rest of the world that you can be you don't have to prove anything to anybody, okay? You do not have to prove anything to anybody in your parenting. You be fierce. I will say this, your baby, your child has one or two, if both parents are present, advocates in this world. There is nobody else that's going to look after your baby and tend to the details of your child like you do. Stand in that position with honor and with fierceness. You don't have to, I'm not talking about being mad at the rest of the world, cussing everybody out that disagrees with you, taking on every argument. In fact, that's the thing I'm saying not to do. You don't have to take on the argument. You don't have to engage people that are critical of you. You don't have to answer to anybody. Okay, that's your baby. That is your baby. You do what's in your heart. God will back you up. It's the spirit of your parenting that counts. So there's a lot of other stories that I could go into that would illustrate this in our history. But this is what I am teaching my up and coming parents, my children now having their children, that I want them to love their children well. And this is one step that frees your mind and your heart to be able to do it well. Let us know in the comments if you are feeling peer pressure, or whether it's spoken or unspoken pressure to do things a certain way with your family, and you would like me to pray over those things. I will agree with you in prayer that you will have the boldness in your spirit and the courage to do what's in your heart for your family and stand strong. So thank you for your time today. Bless you guys.